We are running through how to build forms in HubSpot. Just to give you an idea of who I am, this is myself. My name's Matt Creswick, and I am the head of marketing here at the B2B Marketing Lab. I've been working here for just under 5 years now, and working in the HubSpot tool all of that time. So I've seen the tool sort of grow over the last 5 years. So hopefully today will be of interest to you. Just to give you a little bit of further indication of who we are, as I'm sure you guys are aware, we are a company called the B2B Marketing Lab, and we are part of a group of companies called the ITPR Group. As you can see on screen at the moment, the ITPR Group basically consists of the B2B Marketing Lab, which is a Diamond HubSpot partner, as well as two other digital agencies, one being ITPR, which is a B2B technology public relations agency, and the other one being Be Found Online, which is a international SEO and PPC agency. So as I mentioned, we're a HubSpot Diamond agency. We only work within HubSpot, very much in the inbound marketing and inbound sales world. We actually now have 32 full-time HubSpot experts within our London office, which is a few more than when I first joined the company, which is great to see, and we're sort of growing all the time at the moment. We also ask our guys to take, we ask them, and our guys like to take a lot of accreditations and exams. So we've got over 160 HubSpot accreditations between us and counting. My colleague Violetta is hot on the press of trying to get our team to take as many accreditations as possible. And we're also a HubSpot certified trainer agency, which is quite a new thing. I think previously, basically any HubSpot partner or inbound agency could essentially run HubSpot training sessions. But around 6 months ago, HubSpot actually released a certification which they asked their agencies to take to essentially approve them for running HubSpot training within their offices. Now, we've been doing HubSpot training, classroom training, for around 5 years now. What I mean by that is essentially once a month we have a few guys in our offices who spend either 1 or 2 days with our HubSpot training team, basically going through a lot of different things which we'll give you a small piece of today, and following today every 2 weeks for the foreseeable future. So I hope it's of interest to you. Just to introduce who is actually going to be doing the training with you today. This is Emma. Emma is a senior account manager at the B2B Marketing Lab. Emma essentially heads up quite a lot of our clients, anything from content to HubSpot clients to running inbound campaigns, social media, email marketing, the lot. And Emma is going to run you through using forms in HubSpot. So if that's all right with you, Emma, I will pass over to you.
No worries. Hi, everyone. Fab. So, as Matt mentioned, today we're going to run through using forms in HubSpot. So forms are obviously the core part of the lead conversion process. They're going to be the main conversion point of each landing page that you create within your HubSpot portal. So really, the copy and the format of your landing page should be as optimized as possible, just to try and get your prospects to fill out that form and convert on the page. So really, the kind of structure and format of your form should have kind of the essential fields that you need to identify the contact in HubSpot if they filled out a form before. So obviously having that email address there as a required field. Being able to kind of find out their buyer persona by asking a couple of questions just to really narrow that down. Once you've identified someone's buyer persona, that makes your database really easy to segment later on for further email communication. You can also get GDPR consent from your forms as well, and you can also add fields to kind of get any other key qualifying information that your sales team might need to work out and who to prioritize in terms of the contacts and leads that are coming through from your HubSpot landing pages. So in terms of the other things that forms are used for, they can help build a clearer picture of who exactly your prospects are in terms of their key challenges, their goals, or what kind of services they're looking for from yourself. As we mentioned, they can also help your sales team kind of collect information they need, not only to qualify them in or qualify them out, but also when they get on the phone eventually with a lead who's demonstrated enough interest, they'll have a lot of information to kind of make that conversation really flow easily, know the kind of the right questions to ask as well. It can also, forms can help you understand the product interests, and basically from the information you get from forms, you can tailor and personalize future interactions that contact has with your website and with your content as well. So future landing pages, CTAs they might see on your website, that sort of thing. And then also the final thing, which is really important from a busy marketer's perspective, form submissions can be used as a trigger for automated workflows or a filter for your smart lists as well when you're building contact lists to send out further emails and that sort of thing. Great. So the kind of $1 million question, I guess, how long should your form be? I think it's kind of a bit of a kind of Goldilocks thing. So what's too long, what's too short, what's just right? The key thing to think about when you're assessing how long your form should be is really how valuable your piece of content is. If you've got a very short form piece of content, say a leaflet, a very high level white paper that maybe someone at the top of the funnel might download, the kind of that download now image that is on the slide there, that's sort of obviously a very, very short form piece that would be really good for a very kind of high level piece of content there. But obviously when people work their way down the funnel and you say have a request a demo form that someone might fill out, obviously when someone requests a demo, you're then going to have to put in a member of the sales team, and that will take their time as well to go and run that demo. So you want to make sure that that form is asking the key questions that that salesperson needs to kind of qualify them in and qualify them out, and prioritize those leads that are coming through as well as hot leads versus ones that are maybe slightly more slow burners. And so kind of a request a demo form is generally a lot longer, as well as those kind of more bottom of the funnel pieces of content as well. The form will generally be longer so that you can collect that data to be able to qualify them in and qualify them out. Another key thing to think about as well is obviously where your content sits the buyer's journey. So as we mentioned, top of the funnel, keeping your form short and sweet, only asking for the essential information. These kind of prospects are probably just undertaking research to identify the problem they have, so they don't really want to commit to providing too much information to download those really kind of top of the funnel resources. Your middle of the funnel contacts, however, are looking for slightly more detailed information, and if they filled out a form on your website before, a really great thing to do is to use progressive profiling, so that the fields that they have filled out on a form before have been then replaced with new fields that they can give you more information. So I think something like the number of employees they have, or what's their biggest challenge. They're really great questions to ask as progressive profiling fields. And then, as we mentioned, your bottom of the funnel contacts, they're looking for, they've basically evaluated the available options and are sort of at a point where they are sort of nearly ready to buy. So as we mentioned, asking for more detailed information will help qualify those leads. So in terms of what the form functionality looks like in HubSpot, the forms, basically the form tool is really, really simple and easy to use. I find it very intuitive, especially now HubSpot has updated the form functionality in the interface as well. So you've got drag and drop functionality to be able to just take your form fields, drag them as to which position you'd like them on the form. HubSpot also takes your frequently used fields and just adds them to the top of the list as well. So if you're commonly using, say, your first name, last name, maybe company name as well, that will all be right at the top so that you can drag and drop that across. It's also really easy to make fields required and optional as well. So, you might not want all of your fields to be required. Obviously, HubSpot will make sure email is always required, but if there's essential information that you absolutely have to capture on that form, that is just a simple click on and off option. You can also customize how many fields are on a single line as well, just to keep everything so to keep everything short and sweet, but to keep your form as compact as possible on the page. And then in terms of the profiling options and form customization options you can create custom form fields really easily from within the form tool in HubSpot. So you can create a new property. Say you want to ask a question that's particularly relevant to your own kind of sales teams, qualifying in or qualifying out sort of methodology that they work through. Then you can create a brand new field. You can select sort of what field type you'd like, so whether that's drop down, radio select, that sort of thing. We'd generally say to avoid using free text fields, purely because that makes it quite difficult to segment data later on. So using drop down fields or radio select fields just means that everyone is kind of categorized in a way. You can use that information then in your kind of smart lists. It could form part of your workflow enrollment criteria later on as well. So it's just one of those things just to kind of think about how would you use that information in the future. Will you need to segment as well? As we mentioned, you can use progressive profiling. There's just kind of an image there of what that looks like. And then you can also make fields dependent as well. So based on a contact's answer to a particular form, so say like job function we have in that example, you can, so if someone's job function is a marketing manager, you can then set a dependent field to say, well, what is your biggest marketing challenge? Tell us a little bit more about you, and just make that really specific. Yeah, it's just a really great piece of functionality within the tool to be able to kind of follow up and find out a little bit more information based on someone's answer. There are also form validation options as well. This just really helps to keep your database clean and really low maintenance. Your email addresses can be validated as well. So if, say, someone spells a really common prefix, suffix even like gmail.com, someone spells that wrong, they'll have a prompt to say, actually, do you mean gmail.com? You can also use domain blocking as well. This can basically block form submissions from email domains that you don't want submitting your form. Some people want to block kind of your standard email providers like Outlook, Gmail, that sort of thing. It's something we don't generally recommend, purely because someone might be, a genuine lead, might be looking through in their own time, and they might not use their work email for some reason, but then later on they might use their work email when they've decided that actually this is something they want to pursue a little bit more. They might then use their work email, and then HubSpot will recognize that, change that email address based on the fact that a cookie has been dropped on that person's device, and they will be able to follow up, and you will have kind of a company email address later on. The email domains to block we would generally recommend using for competitors, just so they don't get kind of grouped in with your lead nurture activity. You don't really want to be showing competitors your secret sauce and all of that great content that you've got to offer in your lead nurture pathways. And there's also error detection that you can set for fields like phone number. So you can set a number length to make sure that everyone types in their numbers correctly as well. So if someone tries to go over the required length, a pop-up will appear and it will just say you've hit the maximum number of numbers for this field, and to prompt them to go back and look at that as well. And then the other great piece of functionality that you can use as well is smart forms. So smart forms just allow you to present your form based on a user's behaviour, their device, the language that they speak, or the source that they have kind of reached your website through. It's particularly useful if you're working with an audience or maybe personas who are working maybe within different countries or regions. Maybe you're doing a specific campaign for a French region, or you have an audience who's working maybe primarily on mobile. You can set your form to, say, show a French form, or you can actually set your form so that if someone is viewing on mobile, they'll have fewer fields to fill out, and everything is just optimized and they get the best experience on mobile. To use smart form functionality, it will require your lead to have filled out a form previously, but it's something we find from our experience is just really great for optimizing the mobile experience in particular, but also if you're doing more international campaigns, just to make sure that people from different kind of countries are able to see something in their own language. Great, so I think now we're just going to hop on to a demo, so just be able to show you exactly what this looks like in HubSpot. So to get to forms, you just go marketing, lead capture, and forms. And then here's one we made earlier. Great. So when you open and create a new form, HubSpot will always have your email address field showing there. It will always be required. And now, obviously, because GDPR has now been rolled out and is into place, your consent fields are automatically on the form as well, so you don't have to remember to add those every time. So if we were to say build a form and just show you a bit more of the functionality within the HubSpot tool, so you can see click and drag your first name. Say I wanted my last name field to be on the same line, you just pop it there. Then you've got those both there as well. To set the fields to required, you just hit more, and it's just a simple quick click of the button. It's really, really easy to set that functionality up. And say as well, we'll just add company name. Just pop that there. And then we can have job function, just to find out a little bit more about these guys, so that we can maybe assign their buyer persona a little bit later. And then you can also add progressive and dependent fields. So I'm just going to show you how to do that as well. So say we wanted to take company name and make that a progressive field. So if you just click on the field here, it'll show you the configuration for the company field. So you can change the help text, you can change the label, any placeholders and things you can add there as well. Your progressive field options are here. So you can either leave the field on the form or you can replace it with a queued progressive field. So we're just going to replace it with a queued progressive field. And then here you'll see that the window pops up so you can add your field. So what I'm going to do is let's go for what's your biggest marketing challenge, and just pop that there. So what that means is when someone fills out the form with and their company name is known, then it means that the queued progressive field will show up and say, instead of company name, well, what's your biggest marketing challenge? Tell us a little bit more. And then for job function, let's make this one a dependent field. So again, you can see the configuration options. This one's a drop-down field, so you'll be able to see the labels and the internal values that HubSpot will register them as well. And then you've got your dependent field options here. So these are the actions to take based on the visitor's input. So for the sake of argument, let's say contains any of the CEO, for example. And then we could say select a form field such as a phone number of employees. We can add that. And then here you'll be able to see on the form, when you're reviewing it, you can just click into the dependent fields and you'll be able to see the number of employees is going to follow only if the job function contains any of CEO. So there you have it. You've got your kind of progressive fields that can be set up, and you've also got your dependent fields as well. And then a couple of other features just to run through. So we touched on GDPR. So here, obviously, GDPR is a little bit of a rabbit hole. So just to kind of give you an overview, we won't go into too much detail on this. You've got your kind of different consent options here. So depending on obviously what your privacy policy states and how your kind of business is going to be collecting, storing and processing and contacting people, then you'll have all your different options here. So you've got consent checkboxes for communications, but obviously the form submission is consent to process. You can have 2 consent checkboxes for communications and processing, or you can use legitimate interest based, so that will be your data will be stored based on the fact that you have submitted the form, but also we may contact you as well. You can also customize your you can customize your text here as well. So the subscription type that someone will be stored under once they submit the form, but your privacy text is there and your process consent text is there as well. So you can customize that. You can add a link to your privacy policy, that sort of thing, so that people can find out a little bit more information if they'd like to. Great. Another form piece of functionality that we would recommend as well is using CAPTCHA on your forms. What this will do is, so if I just enable CAPTCHA here, you see it says protected by reCAPTCHA. That will just require people to prove they're not robots, and this should reduce the number of kind of bot submissions that you receive. So there'll just be a quick kind of test when someone submits the form, and it will all kind of go through. It just means that, yeah, it will reduce the number of bot submissions that you have. You can also, so if we go to options here, you can also, if you're working, as we mentioned before, with the smart forms, if you're working in different regions, you can set the form and error message language to a number of different languages. So if someone is filling out the form incorrectly, the error text that they see on the form will be in their own language, so they'll be able to understand exactly what's going wrong rather than trying to hit submit on the form and it just keep popping up in this error language that they don't understand. You can also obviously add display a thank you message and send email submission notifications to specific people in your organisation too. Something to bear in mind here is you also have these options on your landing page form customization as well. So anything you do on your landing page, so setting the submission email notifications or adding a thank you page, that will overwrite what you do here. So it's just worth bearing that in mind. Either making sure that this information is the same as what's on your landing page, or just use the landing page to customize what's here. And then another couple of final bits of functionality to highlight to you is cookie tracking. This is something that we would recommend having switched on for all of your kind of online landing page forms. That if, say, you went to an event and you were using a form to kind of capture people's data just as you were talking to them on the stand, we'd recommend always disabling your cookie tracking. This will mean that when someone fills out a form and another contact wants to fill out the form sort of later on, HubSpot will recognise those 2 people as different contacts and a new record will be created for both of them. So if you, by accident, leave your cookie tracking on, what it will do is every submission will overwrite the previous submission. So it will, after your hard day's work at the stand, collecting all of that contact data, you'd go into HubSpot and you know, it would just show as one contact. But all isn't lost. HubSpot does store the history of all of your contact records, but obviously that's a really manual process. So we'd recommend obviously disabling your cookie tracking just to make sure that a new contact is created every time when you're working, say, on stand at an event, and you're just capturing lots of different people's data within a single day using that same form. And then also you can select the option as well to pre-populate the fields with known values. That's just really useful if you have kind of first name, last name, email address on your forms as standard. All of those kind of fields can be populated with what HubSpot already has attached to their contact record. So if anything needs to be updated, it can be, but it just means that your contacts are immediately drawn then to the fields that they haven't filled out. and it just makes the form submission process a lot shorter for them, and the conversion process obviously a lot easier to run through as well. I think that was it in terms of all of the functionality. You've also got style and preview options here as well. See if that's populating. So you'll be able to see what your form looks like on desktop, tablet and mobile as well. And you have test options as well to make sure it's working. But yeah, I think that was everything. Do you think, Matt, got any questions?
Not at the moment. So I think Emma's just going to run through some key takeaways. Whilst Emma is running through the key takeaways, I think, guys, if anyone on the webinar has any questions to put to Emma for at the end, as I think we'll probably finish a little bit early, please feel free to drop them in the question panel, and we can cover those off at the end. But otherwise, do you want to run through best practice?
Yeah, will do, no problem. Yeah, so just to recap then on what we've been through this morning, your form best practices, just always think about the value of your asset, as this will kind of dictate the length that your form will need to be, and also think about where your contact is in the buyer journey. It's always worth also asking your sales team just what qualifying information they usually use to assess leads when they come in, and make sure that they are kind of getting the information they need when leads are submitting the form. Also, using progressive profiling and custom fields is really important. As we've discussed, progressive profiling will just mean that you can collect more information over time as contacts come back to your website and fill out more forms. And custom fields are really great for kind of making sure that you're getting the information that you need and that's relevant to your specific audience. Obviously, do you need the cookie tracking on or off? That's something that we've just covered with regards to events. Obviously, when you're at an event, just make sure the cookie tracking is left off, and that will make sure that you can create multiple contacts in HubSpot within a single day. And enabling capture will just reduce the number of bot submissions as well. So it's always worth enabling capture on the forms. And then the final thing, just to always have in mind, is avoid using free text fields wherever possible. Just think about how you would use that information in the future and whether you'd need to segment based on the answers to that particular field that you're creating. So if you've got kind of drop-down fields, radio select fields, multiple checkboxes, they're all really, really useful ways of capturing information so you can segment later on.
Fab.
Great.
Super. So Emma, a couple of questions that we can answer between us, I'm sure. First one being, can you build out a HubSpot form into an existing website?
Yes, you.
Throw that one at you?
Yeah, you can throw that one at me, Matt. That's no problem. So yeah, essentially, you can build a HubSpot form into an existing website. Every form that you build, HubSpot will have an embed code so that you can embed that into your existing CMS, basically. And it's just also worth as well just making sure that you have the HubSpot tracking code deployed on your website as well, so all of that information will come through without any problems.
And in terms of the embed code, should we just have a quick look at exactly where you find that?
Yeah.
So once I'm within here, I'm sure they've moved it again.
I'm sure they have moved it again.
So what? Let me come back to that one.
Yeah, no problem.
Apologies, guys. As ever with Inbound 18 just happening, HubSpot usually try and roll out a load of new product updates where it's usually the awkward moment when you're on a webinar like this and they have moved something. So we'll come back to this one in a second. The other question that we've got at the moment is, I guess, like an understanding around why you would turn cookie tracking off in terms of whether or not it creates a new contact or overrides a current contact. Now, the way that HubSpot works with, I guess, like a standard, and as you build a form, unless you tell the tool otherwise, is that HubSpot works very much on a cookie policy. So essentially, when you fill in a form, HubSpot will place a cookie on that computer or laptop. And that's the way that it recognizes you as an individual if you come back to the website or if you fill in another form. Now, what will happen is, as Emma explained earlier, say, for example, if somebody filled in a form using their personal email address, first of all, but then perhaps 3 weeks later fills in another form using their work email address, because they've got the cookie placed on them, HubSpot will actually recognize that this was, Jennifer from Coca-Cola, as opposed to jennifer@hotmail.co.uk. It's recognized the cookie, it's recognized it's the same person. So what it's doing is updating the information that Jennifer is providing to us. On the flip side, if you turn cookie tracking off, what that does is completely removes the cookie tracking from within the form tool. So that if Jennifer completes, the first form and completes it with her personal email address, if 2 weeks later you've got the cookie tracking turned off and Jennifer fills in another form with a different email address, this time her work email address, HubSpot will create a new contact for Jennifer because it hasn't recognized that it's the same person. The main reason that we see cookie tracking turned off, I think, as Emma slightly mentioned earlier, is usually at events. So say, for example, you were at an event at a trade show and you had a laptop or an iPad or something that you were asking people to fill in at the time on the stand. If you had cookie tracking turned on, because it's on one device and one laptop, what will technically happen is if you have 100 people complete that form on your stand, HubSpot will treat that as one contact, but will update the contact's information 100 times. You still would be able to see the information completed, but unfortunately it would be under one contact record, which, trust me, I think we've seen it happen with a couple of clients, and it's not it's not really where you want to be. It's not an easy one to get around. So if you're ever at an event and are collecting email addresses on a device on a stand, if you turn cookie tracking off, it will mean that every time that form's completed, it will create a new contact within your CRM system. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please shout and we can go through it in more detail. So Emma has found the embed code.
So as Matt mentioned, it is one of those things that HubSpot has just moved around. So you just go now to actions, share form, and then you've got the option to basically take the embed code there and add that to the HTML code for your website as well. And there's options there to include the default styling, or obviously just use the styling that's within your own website CMS.
Fab.
Yeah.
I hope that answers that question. So last but not least, Emma, in terms of conversion rates for a form, what would be the best way that you can answer this, what would be a good conversion rate for a form?
Yeah, no problem. So once you've got obviously your form and your landing page and you're getting your submissions, we'd say it does vary based on the piece of content that you're promoting. If it's your kind of standard high-level ebook, we'd probably say that's looking at that, probably looking at a kind of 10 to 30% conversion rate, but kind of 20 to 30 is where you're aiming. 30 plus is amazing. We would also say as well for pieces of content like a case study where someone has to be kind of a very specific point in that buyer journey, we would say we're probably looking at the lower end there, probably hitting at around 10% for something like a case study, maybe slightly lower than that for something as specific as a case study, because that is obviously targeting a very, very specific pain point. And we tend to say that case studies are generally more useful in your, obviously have them on your website, but they can be really useful lead nurture content pieces as well, just to encourage people to find out a little bit more about what you've actually done for a customer, and to kind of prove, it's kind of getting that obviously proof from someone as well.
I think probably the only other thing is that a form, in terms of a conversion rate, a form is just one aspect. it's just one aspect of what's going on in terms of a conversion rate. Other aspects are things like the design of a landing page. If you have a landing page that's on a really poorly designed web page that doesn't optimize when you're on a mobile phone or a tablet, obviously that poor experience for the user is probably going to drop the conversion rate. Other things to consider are things like how long your text is on a landing page and how well you're communicating the offer to the user. We see quite a lot of people now doing things like using videos on landing pages as opposed to text. So yeah, I think that probably covers that one. Things like contact us forms and get in touch forms obviously will have quite a very low conversion rate, just because they're usually based on, I guess, like a standard web page as opposed to a specific landing page. So last question. I've just covered that one. Thank you for the prompt. I hope that sort of answers all your questions. Obviously, if there's any more, please shout in the next couple of minutes just as we wrap up. I just wanted to finish just with a couple of pointers about other sort of things that we've got coming up at the B2B Marketing Lab in the near future. We are running a HubSpot user group for HubSpot users or anyone that is sort of interested in inbound marketing, inbound sales. Actually, next Wednesday, which is the 19th of September at 9 a.m. The user group is taking place just around the corner from our office, which is in Southwark, which is bang in the middle of London Waterloo and London Bridge, basically, about a 10-minute walk from each. We've got Olivia Kerwan from HubSpot flying over from Dublin to speak about sales enablement, and she'll be also giving a brief presentation on all the new products and all the new updates that were announced at the Inbound event last week. I'm hoping that most of our team have recovered from the Inbound week last week in Boston by that point. Additionally, we actually have our classroom training sessions taking place between now and the end of this year. We've got a couple taking place in a couple of weeks, plus towards the end of October, November, and one set in early December. The reason that there's 2 dates on each is that we run what we call a beginner HubSpot training course and also an advanced HubSpot training course. The beginner course is very much focused at, how do I put an inbound campaign live? So how do I build a landing page, build an email, use the social tool? Essentially, how do you put a piece of content live and promote it? The second day is very much following on from the first day, but it's very much more advanced, using things like email campaign workflows, lead management, how do you include and use buyer personas within the HubSpot tool, digs in a little bit more around the analytics and the reporting. So yeah, if there's any interest on any of them, then please do reach out to us. And last but not least, we have our next webinar running exactly 2 weeks today, which is looking at how to build HubSpot emails that convert, where we'll be looking through the HubSpot email tool, best practices around how you build not only just build emails, but what you should be including in emails. Things like how long emails should be, how do you use call to actions, how could you potentially use things like video. So hopefully we look forward to speaking to a few of you either at the user group next Wednesday or in 2 weeks' time on the webinar. Is that all with you, Emma?
Yeah, that's all with me.
Fab.
Great.
Cool. Thank you very much for joining today, everybody. We hope it was beneficial and useful. Any further questions, if you think that we've missed anything or if there's any sort of follow-ups needed, then please feel free to drop me an email and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.